Hello and welcome to the second edition of the Civilization Players League Q&A show. I got here with me Canuck Soldier and Von Holio, and today we're gonna talk about small changes and big changes in our rules, and we're gonna make a little announcements about the future tournament. So stick out through the next hour, and let's see what questions we will have today. First of all, we have to say that the conceding of a game, when a vote to concede a game is started or requested, the game must be paused during the last 20 seconds of the turn. If you could have gained a veto after the game is paused during this time, it will not count. The irrelevancy votes. When a player starts an irrelevancy vote for themselves, their vote is not counted. For example, in a 10-player game, the remaining 9 players will vote. This is not a change, just a clarification. Novice games. We do have weekly novice games right now. There are 2 times a week. We got the European one and the American one. The American one is hosted by Zaddy Gold and is every Wednesday at 4 p.m. PDT, 7 p.m. EDT, 11 p.m. GMT. And Ghost is hosting the European one. That's gonna be in a little bit of 2 hours, I believe, less than 2 hours, every Saturday at 3 p.m. 3 a.m. I think PDT, 6 a.m. EDT, and 12 CEST. Maybe I got those wrong. I think it was 20. I'm gonna get back on those hours. I need to check. And last but not least, we have a lot of new players here. You can support this great community financially if you so desired. We have both a PayPal and a Patreon link in the donations channels. Whatever you choose, we will be happy to get any donations we can get so we can make more and bigger tournaments. Of course, paid tournaments. So I would like to start off the discussion about feeding with Von Holio.
Hey everyone. We've had a few games lately that have had players feeding. Definition of feeding, basically you can pull right from our short rules. You are not allowed to expedite being eliminated from the game. This could include not defending yourself, inviting others to conquer you, and that sort of thing. This is worse than early quitting, since you're putting up less of a fight than an AI would. And what that does is basically giving free cities to another player in the game in an unfair way, unbalanced way. Other players don't have that opportunity. So we heavily discourage feeding.
We should talk about why not feeding is important and how it will actually, in the long run, make you a better player if you're not feeding. And overall, it will be a better experience for everyone.
Very, very, very correct. If you're being attacked by another player, you can really learn how to defend yourself in those situations. You can learn how to chop units quickly to get your army up and able to. Now, if you're maybe 2 ages behind your opponent, then you're definitely going to run into some trouble. But as long as you're making an effort, it wouldn't be considered feeding.
So right now the meta and the changes Firex made to the game actually give the chance for a player to withstand an attack at least until turn 50 or 60 if played properly with Victor and the second promotion or third promotions actually. So the only way to actually successfully attack are maybe 2, I believe, or 3 ways. There is the direct attack when you know he's under-scienced, so he won't have the necessary classical units, let's say, to defend himself, or not enough pre-builds to actually change into. But then it's your mistake if you see a neighbor that is going up in military score and he has a lot more science than you, and you do not do anything about it, right?
Yeah, in the early game, a small science discrepancy actually can be pretty. If someone can get their strategics online faster, and then get to their whatever tech they need for whatever classical unit they need faster, then pretty much the only thing that can save you is terrain. If it takes them a couple of turns extra to get to you, maybe going through jungle or hills or whatnot. A general helps the opponent with that, so you have to keep an eye on your great people page and see if any of your neighbors are attempting to get a great general.
So you do have the, let's say, eyes to keep out, to see if you actually need to defend against or someone.
Yeah, and in our league, it's really important to get to that classical unit. I know a lot of players like to sim up, build up their empire and not really think about military until later. Um, sometimes you feel like rushing campuses is a good play. Um, I don't know. A lot of people like rushing wonders early,
So
but that leaves you really vulnerable to an aggressive neighbor.
back to feeding. We consider feeding deleting units, right? That is the most simple way of considering feeding. The other definition of feeding is not doing any type of military unit when you are at war.
Yeah, if you're being attacked and you start building wonders or whatever instead of units that you need. I mean, I understand sometimes it's just a bad decision and not intentional, or you forget about a certain city that has something queued up, maybe. But as long as you're, showing some kind of reasonable effort, and not just completely going AFK, it's usually not reported by other players.
So I see players that are wondering why I put up the stream about Colento. Colento is at BlitzCon that is going on this weekend, so I thought we would show our support to him. He's playing a beta version of something. Can you touch on that subject? I am not sure exactly what is there.
It looks like he's playing the next version of Hearthstone that adds battlegrounds to the game, which, from my limited knowledge and what I saw at the opening ceremony stream yesterday, is I think an 8-player game of Hearthstone instead of 1-on-1. I have no idea how it works. This is the first time that I'm seeing it. Unfortunately, not really paying close attention to it. But I will put the link here in channels if people want to check that out.
We have our first question. Not sure if I read that correctly. It's 11 Patriotov is asking us what do we think about team play. He sees it every game, and I guess he's talking about the Diplo Plus games. And first of all, we have to say about the rules of the Diplo Plus game. You are allowed 2 friendships and 2 alliances in the game at one point. So basically, it can turn out to be a team game in some respect, 3 versus 3 versus 3 versus 3, but it can also turn out as someone doesn't want to friend anyone and he just prefers to do it alone. That's the whole point of the Diplo game, the diplomacy game. You get to make your choices of a friend or an enemy, and you get to make the choice to talk about it, of course, on the voice chat or the text chat. You make the deals.
From his comments there, yes, all game friendships are this is diplomacy. This goes to the core of what is diplomacy. Really, diplomacy, skill at diplomacy is just as much a part of multiplayer as skill at the game mechanics itself. So we have 3 types of games here. Always War is one game, and if you don't want your game affected by diplomacy, then always war is something you should vote for. Diplo is everything's fair, private messaging, backdoor deals, whatever. And Diplo Plus is sort of our middle of the road where you have to say everything out loud, but you can still have two friends and two allies at any one time. So we try and provide all sorts of options to the community, but Diplo Plus is probably the most popular right.
I think he's concerned maybe about pre-game alliances. Any type of collusion like that is forbidden. It's really hard to police, of course. But yeah, I mean, you have your two friends in Diplo Plus. Sometimes they play Diplo Plus games with one friend. And then there are unofficial friendships, I guess. Uh, sometimes I feel like it's not in the spirit of the rules to do that. Other people have completely different views. So they have no problem with it whatsoever. But I can understand how it can be frustrating, to have, two players that are allied against you, and then maybe their third allies across the map somewhere, but another one of your neighbors doesn't want to get involved, or helps out the coalition that's trying to wipe you out. It all depends on who gains what in what situation. I tend to play games and ally the first player that I meet almost all the time, and then I think about it a little more as I meet the second and third player, and then I kind of just go from there. Michael, how do you handle situations like that?
Well, I've seen two types of situation, especially in Depot Plus. First, there are the players that want to go for first, and if you want to go for the first place, almost always you have to either have enough space to plant your cities and get to one of the victory conditions. It's either culture or science or maybe domination. That domination rarely happens. Or eat another player and get enough space. So players tend to do what you did, friend the first player and alliance him later, and maybe meet another one that's a little bit further or on the other side and eat him up at some point, or just friend both players and have enough space to develop or go somewhere else. That the most aggressive option. I've seen players that don't friend anyone and they just wait a bit, at least 30 or 40 turns to see what's going on in the world. And after they scouted enough, they will make a decision on to in what direction they would go, who they will friend and who they will attack. Of course, I usually frown upon it, but there's always the backstabbing option in this game. So we consider backstab the player that you made a friend with, and then after the friendship ends, and he will attack you. But anyway, that's something you have to be aware of and always be prepared for.
We have a good question from Du in the stream. Let's see, I'll just read it. Pretty much close. In my first MP CPL game ever a few weeks ago, it was a Diplo Plus game where my immediate neighbor and all game friend had clear sight on a culture victory. I was virtually the only player that could stop him, but letting him win, technically allowing me to earn second place on points, whereas there was a chance that if I backstabbed and crushed him, I'd finish third or even fourth. How is the should play for winning rule to be interpreted in such a scenario? To answer that,
I think it depends on the map.
I think we don't. It's not really a should play for winning rule. It's a shouldn't try to lose. You are always encouraged to try and get as high as place as you can as you can get. Um, and if that means helping an ally win the game and you'll finish second, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's what Diplo Plus is for. You make an alliance. Eh, Generally, you know pretty quickly whether or not you have a win condition or not. Um, and definitely, if backstabbing would have dropped you, to third or even fourth or wherever, if you felt like you would have been irrelevant after your attempts to attack, then yeah, I would say definitely going for second place in that scenario is right.
Yeah,
Michael?
the league has a policy. We want players to at least start the game playing for first, but as the game progresses and game night dynamics play out, playing for the best position is definitely what we want to see players.
Another thing that should be pointed out, it's always a chance when you go to war that you will end up irrelevant in an irrelevant war. So your neighbor will get enough defense in time, and he can hold a choke, or you cannot pass through his units, or there's a lot of things that can happen. So most of the good players will wait and see and attack at the right moment when they have a science lead or a big enough army lead, and they know they have the upper hand, and it will guarantee success. That even means they will wait 50 turns. That's not an issue. So that's something to think about. Also, Von, I see Esdeath messaged me back. Can you talk about with him, and maybe we can get him to give us a few pointers here?
Oh, sure. I'll message him quick. Dude did have a follow-up question. This was his first and only game so far. It was a novice lobby, but his second place finish earned him 220 points, and it feels like that locks him out of the novice lobbies earlier than he had wanted to be locked. You want to tell the folks how that works, Canuck or Michael, and I'll get with Esdeath.
Yeah, technically, if you want to solve your score or your skill issue, you gained a lot of skill, maybe a little artificially at first. Jump into a normal FFA, you'll likely place lower due to the fact that you are probably not that skilled compared to the average league player, and placing lower in a game would likely bring you back down to the novice. Also, you are allowed to get voted into a novice game. So if a novice game is forming up and you say, hey, can you please hold a vote? In all likelihood, they know that you're still a novice and would vote you in. In the long run, Glico is going to, if you can't maintain that skill level, Glico is going to lower it for you. One game isn't proof that your skill has improved that much.
Well, this is an interesting question. Patriotov is asking if we will ever change the system of the first and second and third and everything towards a win, survivor, and dead scenario. I don't think that will ever happen, because in this game there are so many scenarios that can play out that it's really important to give that third place or fourth place to a player. Let's say you have a really bad spawn. A good player can make out of that bad spawn maybe and get a third place or a fourth place out of a 10-man game, and I think that should be rewarded in of itself. If you just call him a survivor, I don't think it actually touches the right string there.
I think playground dynamics. Basically, we have a game mode that called King of the Hill, where only first place got first. It was never used, so the playground, other than maybe some a special CCC game that we'd play, no one wants to play King of the Hill. Like Michael said, You start off with a crappy start, making fourth is okay. You can't always play for first. We want people to start the game trying to play for first, but obviously, if you get a tundra start or you get a peninsula start and you can only place 4 cities, obviously you're not playing for first anymore. You're playing for the best position you can. And that's fine. We want people to be competitive here, of course. We want people to play, and you can gain points if you're a 1450 player like myself and you get fourth, you're going to get 20 points. So you are going to get rewarded for trying your best and making the best out of a poor situation.
A lot of that also, I would say, depends on the player themselves. I mean, if someone is like a defeatist, and they just they know they can't win, and they're so competitive that that's the only thing that motivates them is winning, then they lose interest and maybe start streaming movies or something and not paying attention, not playing their hardest. And then you have players that fight to the bitter end. I enjoy that type of play style. I like the immersion in the game. And I feel like we mentioned earlier, you're always going to probably learn something. Maybe you learn a new tactic. Maybe you learn that this unit is a little more vulnerable to another unit. There's just little stuff that you can pick up, and if your mind wanders, you're not paying attention, that's just stuff you can miss, and it's more likely that it's going to happen to you next time you play also.
To get back at what you said and to complete what you were saying, I think there's a good thing to go into the normal FFAs and try out to go head to head with the bigger players or the more experienced players, even if you don't have the necessary experience. Most of us, when we started out, we didn't have the choice between novice and normal games, and we most of the times we were getting eaten by the bigger players. But that taught us how to defend, what are the timings of the units, how we should prepare, if we can take a chance or we cannot take a chance with maybe a campus district instead of an encampment in some cases, or if we can trust someone or we cannot trust someone. That kind of experience is not given to you in the novice area, but I can understand the reasoning of the novice area, just so you can have a quiet place where you can all be at the same level and learn about it as you go.
And yeah, I mean, I understand the problem about being locked out of the novice channels once you get up to, what is it, chieftain rank, I guess.
After you graduate, yeah.
But like Dua is saying, he only played one game. So what I can tell you is, go ahead and message one of the organizers, either Ghost or Zaddy Gold, or even any moderator, and we can get you in touch with them. And I mean, again, I go back to the spirit of the games, and we want proper players playing in the novice games. And if you've only played one multiplayer game, most likely you are definitely qualified to play in that game, even though you jumped up so high on the scoreboard.
I'm not sure exactly what messages you're sending me, Vaughn. I cannot switch. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Esdeath is ready.
Okay. Well, maybe we can touch on the Zulu and Georgia subject with him also. Can you grab him?
Sure. Yep.
Cool. Hello there, Esdeath.
Hello.
How's it going today? Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm happy to be on. Just woke up.
So we were talking about the novice experience in our server, and we had a few players wondering how did the big players in this league, like you, like Tordred and others, made it to that rank even when you were novices. How did you get past that incredible grinding of games?
Okay, so before I got to CPL, I started playing this game the moment it came out, essentially, on the release date, and I never really played single player, maybe one or two times just to see how it is, but I didn't like it. And then I started playing public games, and before you find CPL, you have a lot of games where people quit, but I enjoyed the game so much where that I kept playing, even though a lot of games just got quitters. But I think I played around 800 or 700 hours of public games until I got to CPL, and I was fairly uh, knowing of the meta, but I didn't have the. Of course, I still got my ass stomped when I joined a CPL because I didn't know the whole, diplomacy aspect of like the current borrowing gold, borrowing resources from other players, and all that. Um, and then there's also, of course, so much more to learn and so many special tactics to learn before you can, actually get good at this game. But yeah, no, even with 700 hours in this game, when I joined CPL, I still got my butt handed to me so many times early on. I think my first game though I finished second, and that was through pure luck. It was I spawned in a corner or something, and they just let me be since I was a new player. But then after I got second once, I became such a big target by the good players of that time. And I remember Harambe, Red, and Philly Boy just handing me big L's every single game until a few months in where I started getting good. I started watching their streams, and when you watch people's streams that hand you the L, you know, when you watch them see how they play, you go like, oh, that's how they do that, and then you start incorporating that play style, that mentality into your own play. And what I did is what I've been telling people for years since I started playing here is that I took the play style of Harambe, Philly Boy, and Red Phoenix from that era. I combined it into my first like real not professional, but my first real play style of this game. Besides just besides just straight up horse rushing and other things in pubs. So learn from the people that constantly beat you. If they stream, watch their even recordings, and yeah, you have to be open to just getting your butt handed to you so many times before you can hold your own. And if you are a good student and you learn how you got your butt handed to you, you might become a not just a good player, but a top player. And I guess it takes a year or two of refinement to actually get to the top. But some people get there faster, some people don't. It took me a year or so to get to top 5, and then it took me like a year and a half to get to top 1, and then there's a lot of getting your butt handed to you. But if you persevere, if you learn from your mistakes, you learn why they beat you, what they did, then there's no really reason why you shouldn't be climbing into the top 50 of this league.
The game has evolved in the last 2 years. Do you think the mentality should be changed as well?
Oh, the game has evolved significantly in the last two years. I remember that when I first started playing here. Well, the first actually first play in Civ 6 was spam units early at someone and kill them. No one really had the experience of playing the game past like classical medieval era. You just I'm talking like the first iteration of Civ 6, where you just spam units at people. You go to Scythia and you win, or you go a different Civ and you win because all you do is just throw units. And yeah, but and then the first real meta I noticed in CPL was the horse rush, or if you have 2 horses, you're guaranteed um, killing some city states, killing maybe a new player near you, or at least not dying to someone.
And then they implemented the governors, and we had Victor with +5 on him.
Yes. Then we implemented then they implemented Rise and Fall, and then that made the game more sim-based, less aggressive meta. Because if you try to be more aggro, then the player had easier ways of defending, and it was less efficient to spend resources on offense early. Because then other people who are in other parts of the map, if you don't succeed with a fast victory, they have, instead of invested early in military, they've invested more in their economy, and then they snowball off that way harder than you can. So, in early Civ 6, I'd say that even if you didn't immediately murder someone, you could still, even if you kill them, you're in a good position. You're good to go. But as with the additions of the new expansions and new patches that favor um, being more, let's say, being more diplomatic and peaceful, or at least early on. Um, it's unless you have a resounding uh, early victory in a war, unless you early conquests the good cities in an enemy's empire, the production cities, you basically cripple them to the point of them not being able to come back while you yourself have accomplished your early objectives, and now you can quickly go back into simming. Unless you can do that within a few turns of starting a war, um, it's not really efficient to do it. At least a war of conquest. I've changed my tactics mostly the last few years of throwing a few units at someone just to hamper them, but not slowing my own play, my own economy significantly. Barely. It's just a few units in to mess with people, to train my units, and to pillage whatever is exposed, and to get them off balance while I focus on my own economy. So I'd say the early game has shifted heavily from warring someone early to conquer to um, trying to hamper someone with as few units possible, so that your own sim or your own economy is not affected as much. And then as the eras go on, it's more efficient to start making units instead of early. It's you've invested early on more into sim, so that later on it doesn't hurt as much when you start making military.
I was saying earlier that I've noticed a lot of good players wait for that overall overwhelming victory. So and they actually wait 70 turns or maybe more to get that science lead over the opponents. Do you think that's available?
I mean, before it was kind of the same thing where there was a cav rush in the early Civ 6 meta where you get calves and there was no pike and shot. Field cannons weren't as good. It was the fastest attack cav. So the meta was you get an industrial general quickly and you upgrade a shit ton of horses to cavalry, and then you run over someone easily because you have out tech them. Now, I mean, it was back then same thing, but it was only with cav. Now it's with any era, if you're ahead of you, if you can get ahead of someone by a few turns into a certain units, into a certain future unit, that's very key. Like if you can get tanks before your enemy can get tanks for 6 turns in a war, well, maybe you can take one or two cities off your enemy before they can actually muster up a good defense, and even then you've already maybe killed a few of their pre-builds, further hampering their war efforts.
Yeah.
So it's not always your, even later on, it's like you, depending on your lead, of your tech lead, of your culture lead, because culture is also very important now.
Yeah. One player is asking us about the nerf to Zulu in Georgia. I can understand the nerf to Zulu. I'm not sure about the nerf to Georgia, but I think
Nerf it.
nerf it.
I
But
love playing Georgia, and I never make a single holy site, or if I do, it's for the memes. Like I have no other reason to.
I
Like I've
mean,
gotten defender. I got a what I made Stonehenge for memes once because I two turned it, and I got Defender of the Faith. No, 3 turned it as Georgia Defender of the Faith, like turn 40, and I never ever made a holy site for it, and it didn't matter because thing is with Georgia, you can what you have 3 4 cities early before your golden age, and then you're already making 30 something faith a turn, and then you save up for 3 turns, you buy a settler, and then you make your walls, and you chop a few more settlers out from other cities. Now you have like 7 8 cities, and then you have all walls in all of them, and now you're at what 70 faith a turn or so, and
Yeah,
then
it's
you
amazing
buy.
faith production.
Yeah, it's free faith production, and
But
it's
at the same time,
honor
Georgia is
walls and
can be played a little differently than you described right now, especially with papal primacy and their inherent bonus to the religious pressure that you give to the city states when you put an envoy in. So we usually in Timors we use Georgia as a city state
envoy.
holder.
So
Yeah,
basically, I use it as a Greek replacement.
yeah, something like that because it can
I
hold.
see the I see the value in that. I just don't think my playstyle is compatible with that.
Yeah,
I
you're.
could learn it.
I've
I
noticed
understand
you're
the
more
value.
of non-faith based Civ type of player.
Yeah. The only type of faith I ever go is Crusader Defender, and Defender is to deny other people from getting Defender. Crusader,
Yeah.
either for me to use Crusader or deny people to use Crusader. So my faith play usually is to deny one of those two good military religions, or if it's like a good holy site off taking a white city state, I'm like, well, I get a religion anyways, and I can't get Crusader Defender. I'll get something that gives me gold or something that gives me something. And
Yeah.
then if you're Georgia and you're like, I've spammed all the settlers I can with faith, like I don't really need more builders, and I can't. It's not really. I'm not really warring, so I'm not really interested in spending my faith into units. Might as well make some missionaries and or apostles to convert some of my cities or stuff.
You can
Now, if
always
there's a
use the religion to get more science or culture
if
from another
there's
player.
no, if there's a it's not for me. No, no, no. I'd rather just use the production. I just do it through production.
But
But
also buying great people is always a way to go.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's another thing.
sure, sure, sure. But thing is, for me, sorry, can I go?
But definitely by using faith to buy settlers or workers or whatever it is, that's powerful.
Oh, definitely. Georgia and Russia are the only civs I actually go monumentality on because you get the faith just for being that civ. So it's efficient. You're not expending really extra effort to get all that faith. But when I have to make holy sites, and I'm like, oh, instead of making a good campus or a commercial or an extra different district like an industrial zone or a commercial center, I am now making a faith district. Why am I doing this? This is not efficient for my play style. It doesn't
Maybe
mesh well with what I do.
maybe we should ask Esdeath more about his Zulu playstyle. I think it fits more into his type of playing than asking him about Georgia.
Well, I only played Zulu once ever since you guys buffed it.
Rebuffed it,
So
yeah.
I've only played it once, and that was recently. What can I say about Zulu? What's the exact question you're asking?
Well, first of all, if you think that it should be nerfed back, and the second one would be wait, if we like Warlord's Throne, I guess, with Zulu.
Um, hmm. So first question: should Zulu be nerfed or should it be stay as it is? So if you nerfed it back to what it was, I'd say no because then Zulu's a worthless civ to play. It has no aspects that are good for it. Um,
It's very expensive as well.
Yeah, it is. Thing is, everyone's like, yeah, you get plus 15 units early, but the thing is, you are essentially wasting extra production and making units. You're upgrading with extra gold. Yes, you do have like more suit. Like you have these super units, but your enemy can still just like have more units and kill them. It's definitely possible with the right moves. So Zulu isn't this like big baddie. Um, but you just have to be wary of that once Zulu hits mercenaries. Like the same thing as when Indonesia hits what mercenaries themselves and they get jogs.
Yeah.
You just have to know that that's what's gonna happen. You have to get ready to prepare to fight against it. Like, are you saying that you're gonna nerf that early basically the frigate equivalent for for Indonesia for because it's so broken early? No, because it's an aspect of the game. Yeah, if you remove that, then it would be completely useless. If you remove the chorus from Zulu, it would be completely useless.
Even Indonesia, it's not that easy to get. They use niter, and you need the niter tech before, then you can upgrade.
Yeah, but you don't need a tech square sailing.
Yeah.
You go tech niter without any concern. So I'd say that. I don't even thing is Zulu was even my last choice in that game to pick. I just chose it because I wanted to try it for at least once. I had other options. So for me, I wouldn't choose Zulu to play because you get an encampment that's half 100% off or whatever, and you get one housing for making it. Okay, that's something. But
Later
what
on, you
else?
can train core or
Yeah, yeah,
armies.
train for yeah, I tried that. It's a little bit cheaper. Okay, so we can do that. Taking cities with a non-core, non-army, and then when it gets promoted to the next level or whatever, it becomes from a regular to a core, or core to an army once you have the civic. That's nice. But it's basically like it's just a very war sip. It's like a Scythia. You get extra combat bonus. You get like Orling Mongolia. You get extra combat bonus. You have these war advantages over other people. But I don't think it's something that it's too broken or something. Like you could maybe tweak it to make it a little bit less strong, I guess. But don't remove it. No, because then you remove the whole point of playing the Civ, and it's completely irrelevant.
So back to the question of the Warlord Throne, I guess it's the best choice with Zulu to go Warlord Throne since your units are very gold heavy.
No,
I think
no.
Esdeath is gonna.
I go audience chamber.
let's see. It's a discussion. So
I go audience chamber every game ever since I could convert it to audience chamber. It's the best thing. You guys need to either nerf audience chamber or make everything else as good as it because I go audience chamber every game and I have zero regret.
yeah, high population cities for more districts. I totally understand you.
That's what
That's
you
why, for example, I like religion or religious-based civs. I just go feed the world with every religion.
No. It's not just that. You have to make those holy sites in those cities. I can pop. I don't even sometimes use Amani as her main function in city states. I put her in one of my cities to make sure that city grows.
I do
To make
that.
sure that city has amenities. I don't give a fuck. I use all my governors as basically I've chosen this city as a primary
Food
city.
givers and
As
housing.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, like, no. If this city has value, as in it has a lot of hills, has potential to be a high production city, a high yield city, like one of my main cities, I will put a governor in there. So I will have all what? How we have 8 governors in the game, right?
Yeah.
8 governors. I've now chosen these 8 cities, or if I'm using money in something, these 7 cities are my main cities. These are the ones I focus on. I will protect them no matter what. All my other extra cities are just ancillary. They're support to these 7 cities. So audience chamber is such a big game changer as what it is now. No other government plaza building in the first tier is even comes close to how good audience chamber is. It's not even a contest. I always played ancestral throne. It was like, oh, you hit that feudalism timing and then you settle a shit ton of settlers and you get, oh look, you get 5 production, or if you made pyramid 6 production, not 6 production, 6 charge builders, awesome. And then you improve mines around it, and then you chop it, and then you do whatever you want, and then you grow that city fast, so you have a high production. Or you can have amazing stats for that city for the entire game early on. I mean,
Yeah, I
I don't know.
totally agree. I switched myself when we got into Gathering Storm and they made the change. I switched myself from making what was the Ancestral Hall into Audience Chamber just because of the high pop and the change of meta. I'm not sure if you were playing, but there was the change of meta towards planes at first before they were nerfed. So if you didn't have that extra district to put down your aerodrome,
Yeah.
you were screwed late game.
Oh, I know. I could tell. It was like, yeah, extra district. You can put in. Like I was like, I don't even know what to do with all these extra districts now. But I'm like, now I know because like, oh, you get aerodrome, you get your spaceport. Like now you do have that room. You have
Yeah.
that population to go those final two districts, which are so crucial in the late game.
Yeah,
Like you need those
especially if you
aerodromes.
don't have any kind of farm placements. If you don't have any
Yeah.
flat land to put your farms, you have to wait until you can place farms on hills, and that's gonna take a long time.
Yeah, and I have to, and you always have to make sure that you don't use up all your flat lands in a city.
Yeah,
So then you're stuck with not being able to build a spaceport or an aerodrome. 'Cause that's a big problem. I've had once before, and I was like, oh, never again will I forget. So yeah, when you have those 7, 8, or 8 governor cities that hopefully you put them in cities that have high production, like a shit ton of mines with a good industrial zone, and a lot of other good districts. Well, that city was going to be like 15 pop at the least in the towards the end of the mid game, like turn 80 or something, turn 80, turn 90.
yeah.
That's when you should be popping those aerodromes down. Well, you can have aerodromes that turn 74, 75. I've done it before.
I
But
mean, it depends. It depends on what you
yeah,
have to
it
do in the game.
depends. Yeah, if you've rushed up on the top tech tree, yeah, you can do it. But if you gone up and down, then turn 80, turn 90, you're getting those aerodromes down. But then you should have 15 pop or 12 to 15 pop in at least every of one of your governor cities
Yeah,
or
at least the
more.
first two cities you placed.
Oh, for sure, you should have
Yeah,
it by pop 15 in your capital in another city. For sure,
yeah.
you should have it by turn 80, 90.
We do
And
have
then
some. Excuse me for breaking a little bit. The first of all, Borrell is very adamant about banning disasters, nerfing Scotland, and saying that we need to buff Warlord's Throne. Um, I'm not sure about the ban disasters for because I really like the.
I
Um,
don't like it. It's horrible. It's
I mean,
absolutely just it's horrible RNG, and especially
exactly. I've
it,
been in games in which I got
mm,
saved by a disaster, and I've been in games in which I was killed by a disaster. I literally,
no, but thing is, it's this the problem. It pillages a lot of your districts. Like, oh, all of a sudden a
yeah,
snowstorm
yeah.
comes.
I mean,
No,
it's
I've
your
had it
fault you put
where
the districts
no,
there.
no, 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 no. This isn't a snowstorm. Like you're playing Russia. You have no choice. It will come and kill you. It will. The thing is, I remember one Russia game. I spent 16 turns just repairing districts in my capital and in another city. Not including that 16 turns. So my capital, I spent 16 turns repairing districts because I had one snowstorm, one turn, and then a snowstorm another 10, 11 turns.
I
And all I
mean,
did was repair districts, and so you lose the ability to produce anything else in that city.
and it's
And so
frustrating.
15
I
turns.
totally understand,
No, it's
but
not
at the
frustrating.
same
It's
time,
stupid. It is absolutely stupid. Because then for 15 turns, you're doing nothing of use in that city. Because then you have to repair your districts. You can't fix it faster. You can't overflow your production through through multiple projects at a time. You can't. You're basically fucked. You cannot do anything in that city. So if you get hit by a disaster for the next 1,000 years of that game, your people are destroyed. You're in that city or multiple cities. Like let's say your government plaza gets flooded. You know, you lose that bonus because of RNG. And you can't fix and you can't stop floods until you research the dam technology, and that doesn't even come that early. I mean, it comes early relatively. It's what, medieval era or Renaissance, early Ren. Um, but it's like the top tech tree, and most people don't go for it early unless they're coastal. And if they're coastal, they probably won't have floods because they're coasts and not floodplains.
it's much
So
easier to make the
and it's
dam
so
now. Like
expensive.
really, come on.
No,
It's not. Well,
no,
it's
the dam's
expensive, yeah,
expensive.
to build. Yeah, I
It's
can
super
understand
expensive.
that, but
So it
you should
may be
you should have the industrials already. You should have like
no,
you
no,
need
no,
to
no.
plan
So
them
no, no. So
accordingly. Like,
uh, dams need to be cheaper. I think that one way to balance is to make dams like the same cost as aqueducts or
so it's
something like
like
that.
the flood barriers. At first they came out with like 10 times their production, and right now they're 10 times cheaper. I'm not sure if you noticed that.
I noticed that, and that's fine. That's good because would you want to spend 10 turns making something even when you have like 80 production and that's not like a end game project?
Yeah,
That
I
doesn't make
totally
sense.
understand.
That's completely stupid because then you're not building units, you're not building other districts, you're just no. Um, and also that wouldn't be accurate. Like your people spent what 1,000 something years building a flood
Yeah.
district.
Uh,
Damn, no.
Another player was asking us if Rome is still broken.
Rome is not broken. Rome is just good.
Yeah, you do have that extra monument you get in each city, the free
And you have
monument.
Bath. You
Then you
get
get the
Bath.
bath, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not broken. It's just you get early advantages. So as Rome player, I mean, I rarely even play Rome now. Even though I roll it so often, I don't play it. Essentially, there's almost always a better civ than Rome. Rome is just you get early advantage, and you don't have a spawn bias as Rome, so you can get fucked by that. And you can always get to use your aqueducts. You might not have the ability to, because you might be coastal, and you're like, oh fuck, I can't use I can't use my unique district. Um, Rome, like if you have amazing spawn as Rome, I guess then it's pretty busted because you can quickly spam settlers. But for most of the times I play as Rome, I don't really get a busted spawn, so you do have an advantage, but it's only like a 2 culture, 4 culture, 6 culture early advantage, which is good, but it can always get mitigated by someone else, you know, having a better spawn or meeting a purple city state, or you could be the one with the purple city state first, meet in Monument as Rome. I just say that it's pretty solid, or it's pretty solid, especially early, but you can outsim it. It's pretty easy too. Um, it's just a regular civ after the early stages.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed
Legion,
in teamers they are using Rome to boost their teammates. So
you
let's
mean
say
to get through civics faster?
yes, exactly.
I
But
guess. I mean,
that's only at the
why?
first 30
Early?
turns or
No,
40 turns.
there's no. There's way better ways of doing it. It's just called shift entering your culture. You can overflow without even doing the civic, and so I could be 1 turn away from finishing a civic, but I don't even research it because I wait until I get the boost, and then the next civic it's also 1 turn, so I'm just overflowing. Every single turn I use that bug, where I can overflow my culture into another civic, 1 turning it, and I wait unless it's a critical thing I want now. I wait until it's boosted, so the overflow is even less used.
I know you were away for a while, and I guess you're probably playing the games in normal multiplayer. I wanted to ask you about what's your opinion about BBG after playing for so long without BBG, Battle Balance game.
I didn't really play that much without PBG.
No,
Why
you
would you
didn't.
play? No,
Why would you play? That's an interesting question you just said. Why would
I
you play
mean,
without BBG? Okay, can you touch upon that?
why would you play without BBG? I mean, it's less balance. It's just I don't know. It is a pretty good balance mod, I have to say. I mean, it still has its own, things that I'd say should be added or taken away to make it better, but it's the best thing that there is right now for balancing Civ 6 in its current stage. So,
I think even BBG has caught on in pub games. I've seen that happen too.
yeah. When I play pubs, I only play the pubs with BBG. So yeah, it's a good mod. It's the best mod there is for balancing Civ 6 at the moment. So when you play without it, you just feel like you just feel this sense of like this isn't right. You feel the sense of like what are you doing right now? It just feels filth.
One last thing I wanted to touch upon, since we're like 6 minutes out from finishing this episode, I wanted to say about coaches. We do have coaches in the community, first of all, and second of all, I wanted to invite more people, more veteran players to coach other novice players. And I wanted to ask Esdeath, did you think about coaching another player?
Yeah, I thought about it. Just currently, I'm currently in grad school and working full time at the same time. So when I have time to play a game of Civ 6, that's pretty much all I have time for. Like if you guys have been noticing, I don't really report my games till like many hours after because like I play my game and I'm like, okay, I gotta sleep now because I gotta wake up in the morning and then go to school and then go to work and then I'm back home at like 9, sometimes 8.
Yeah, of
And then I'm like,
course,
okay, I'm
time
gonna
is
play a
always a
game. I'm gonna
factor.
play a
Yeah.
game until like 1 a.m. And I'm like, okay, I gotta sleep. Gotta wake up at 6. So,
Hey, we
um,
got Code in here. Hey, Code. Good morning.
Hey, Michael. Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
No problem, man. We talked a bit about BBG, and Esdeath was asking us, why would you play without BBG? And I think that was the best question we had here. But we didn't touch upon Glico Technical. Can you enlighten us on that? Why did we switch between the normal ELO system and Glico, or Glyco, how is it called? And what was the development of it?
Sure. So previously we used a system called ELO, and I believe ELO is a bit outdated and is not regarded as the best system to use for something like what we do here. Glico has some extra features that allow it to be more accurate over time. And one of those features is rating deviation, what you'll see on the leaderboard as RD. And so as you play more games, as Glico zeroes in on your actual skill rating, that rating deviation goes down. And so the swings of how much points you win or lose will become less and less, and therefore your skill rating will be more accurate. We actually use a version of Glico called Glico 2. It's not a perfect system, but it is showing that it's more accurate.
I have a question code about this RD.
Sure.
So I have an RD of 55, yet I have 41 games currently reported. Not reported in but let's just say someone like Jack currently has 23 games and he has a lower RD of 45. Is it based on my own performance? Like I have games where you do really bad and other games where you a lot of times get first. Is it based on that or is it based on just how many games?
So it's based on who is also in the game with you and what their rating deviation is. So if you play a game with others who have very high rating deviations, then it's not going to lower your rating deviation that much because it's not really sure how to compare you against those people.
I understood. That makes sense.
The other thing on that note is I believe you sub into a number of games, and I don't believe Jack does. So where you place in those games is probably a lot different than where you would normally place. So that probably throws it off.
I think 2 of my games were subs, I believe.
We have a player, Duo, that is asking us if there is a source for the mathematical formulas for the new system. He would be interested to know them.
It is standard Glico formula. We use a open source package that code plugged in. So if you Google Glico 2 and you have strong math skills, it's all open source.
Yes, there's a paper that I used to kind of learn about it. Just Google Glico 2, it'll be one of the first papers that comes up. It's not that long of a paper. It tells you all about the math and the history behind it. And as Canuck mentioned, there's a Node.js package that's one of the top search results for Glico as well. It's like npm Glico 2.
Did we have to adapt it somehow to our community, or was it just an implementation thing?
It did have to be kind of mashed a little bit. I believe it was originally developed for games like chess, and so it's not perfect for what we do, but essentially, yeah, we basically just had to kind of make it work for what we do. Traditionally, how Glico 2 is meant to work is it's like these rating deviations are taken over a period. So you would kind of like record who's winning and losing in all these games over like a week or maybe a month. And then you would hit a cycle and everyone's rating deviation and their skills would change at that time. But we wanted more of a fast-paced change. So it is a little bit less accurate in that regards, but it's more real time.
Yeah, we Glico basically is based on 1v1 chess, for instance. So under the hood, when you report an FFA, our Glico module just runs through 1v1s with you and every other player in that game. And then you beat one player, they give you a plus amount of points. You beat another player, they give you a minus. At the end of the run of you against 9 other players, you come up with a net gain or net minus, basically, without getting really deep into master's level math here.
And one of the differences that we have now, so one of the things Elo was doing, it was simply taking like, okay, you got first place, so you got to win against everyone below you in 1v1s. Glico does a similar thing, but it's not as straight line as that. And the other thing that's really different is how it handles ties. So because it knows everyone's rating deviation, if you tie someone that is much better than you, you will actually gain points and they might lose points. Whereas before we were just manually counting that as a break even.
Yeah, basically Glico thinks if you win again, if you tie someone much better than you, then you're doing very well. The opposite works too. If you tie someone much worse than you, Glico says you shouldn't have tied someone that bad, and they punish you for it.
Borel is asking us if we will ever bring back the disaster vote.
I've had like one person reach out to me on that. I'm not even. It might have been him, but I basically said if people start bombarding me with questions to bring it back, then it would seem like it's something that people want. But I have not heard anyone except for one person, and I guess now it would be 2 potentially, who have asked for that back. Every game I've ever played since the first 1 week after Gathering Storm came out, it's been a 4 disaster rating.
Well, thank you very much, Code, for coming here and enlightening us about the Glico technical details. I personally didn't know all of the details and I couldn't explain it. And I think we had a good hour of questions and answers, and we touched about a lot of subjects here. Not sure if we covered everything. Kanak, Ponholio?
I would just like to take 30 seconds here to plug a tournament that's coming up before we call it a day. CIVFR is running a 2v2 team tournament in November. They're still working through some of the details, so a start date hasn't been published, but sign up will soon happen. Colo and Leger are driving this, and I've been in contact with Fire Access to get support from 2K for this. So that's upcoming. I just wanted everyone to know that there should be, and they've got a bunch of very high level French streamers, much like in the Z event, if you guys remember that. So we're trying to build on the Z event success here and promoting this tournament. So there'll be more to follow and more published.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Esdeath, aka Morningstar, aka Tube, aka Big Roller, for coming in and spreading his knowledge about the game. Very experienced player, highest level that we have. Want to plug his
Almost highest level.
almost, I guess.
A second.
Plug his Twitch channel. It's 2B_civilization. You will learn much from him. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Hope you show up.
See everyone around.